No, we're up to the detective, Erica.
First Twilight's done.
First Twilight's done, yeah. So they've got to try solve the first Twilight before the second Twilight.
Who?
Erica and the witches.
The witches?
The witches?
No, they just wanted to have a look.
So they're not solving the Twilight? Erica was dozing off on her bed, so when a knock sounded on the door, it took some time before she noticed. She looked at the clock and saw that not much time had passed since she had lain down.
Yes? Who is it? I hope you have a good reason for knocking on the detective's door at an hour like this. That's right. I have one thing to say before we begin this game.
Wait, who's she talking to?
Oh, that detective proclamation thing. Do as you wish.
No, I mean the opposite. I say we raise the stakes.
Raise the stakes. No. I can't remember her voice. It's been a while. Where's her... Oh, pumpkin's on her. I thought she had a pumpkin on her head.
No?
What's this? Now that sounds interesting. What do you mean?
It's simple. Battler got a shot off at us in the last game. So if Erica does the same in this game, we're only even.
Wasn't that last game a tie?
We failed to win a game that should have been a shoo-in, right? If that isn't a loss, I don't know what is. Right, Erica? Yes, my master. If I hadn't failed so miserably, we would have won that game easily.
Ooh, I get it. So this time you'll intentionally fight at a disadvantage by not making a detective proclamation and win despite that. You're scheming to not only wipe out your loss from the previous game, but to totally flip the score upside down, right? You intend to participate in the game Battler's son poured his heart and soul into with a foolish handicap like that? That is not only presumptuous, it's quite rude.
You've got a point there. It sounds more like an excuse just in case they lose.
True. You could also look at it that way. If they win, it's a great victory, but if they lose, Erica's side has a nice little excuse. Isn't that a bit unsporting?
Don't worry, this bet is balanced on both sides. If this game is won by a human without the detective proclamation, it'll be impossible for Battler and the others to pick up the pieces of the illusion of the witch. But on the other hand, if Erica loses, that detective trash will be sent into the depths of oblivion, along with the worst possible fragment. See? That's balanced, isn't it? An ultimate victory with a mere human, not a Superman detective, destroying the illusion of the witch. She's putting her own destruction on the line to make that bet. I've gotten bored with these sluggish repeating games that you and the former Beato made. So we're raising the stakes and stealing it, or settling it, all at once.
Well, that's true. If Battler makes it through this game, it'll mean that Battler has won Beato's game and the game will end. In that sense, it's a showdown you can't escape, right?
I see your position. Are you okay with that, Erica? Yes, of course. In order to regain my master's trust in me, which was lost by the previous defeat, I will risk even my own destruction. Is that of your own will? What's wrong, Erica? Answer him, okay? Obviously, this is my own will. I certainly will not lose. Even without the detective proclamation, I will defeat you no matter what.
Butler-san.
Sure, that's fine. If that's what you want, I'll accept that challenge.
Thank you very much. I'll make sure you regret it.
After all, when Battler played for the human side, he never had anything as convenient as the detective's authority. All he was allowed to do was use the blue truth and demand that Beata repeat things he said.
Exactly. In a way, the last game was unfair. We failed to win despite that, which is why it was no different from a loss.
Do what you want. If you feel like making a detective proclamation, do it whenever you like. I understand that you're holding it in reserve at the moment.
As if I'd use such a thing against an opponent like you. Then get started, you two. I'm already starting to get bored. Leave it to me, my master. I will destroy the illusion of the witch for you without fail.
George and Jessica had been the ones knocking on Erica's door. They were asking whether Battler and Maria had come to this room. Of course, they hadn't.
A good while ago, they went downstairs saying they wanted to get something to drink. We thought they might have come to your room.
Of course not. Why would they? Are you sure they didn't go to the mansion?
We called the servant room and dining hall of the mansion, but no one picked up.
Please stay here, you two. I'm going to check the mansion.
Hey, it's dangerous to go out this late.
How could a stranger sneak into this sealed-off island? Stay in that cousin room of yours. I'll contact you if anything happens. Also, tell the servants in the guest house servant room not to leave the building. Bye.
Well, wait a second, Erica-san.
She's a strange kid.
After speaking her mind and not listening to anything else, Erica had dashed down the stairs and rushed outside. Oh my goodness.
It's like not her house, but she's just running the place.
Yeah, I know.
The first twilight usually starts in the morning, but it looks like we've got an early fight this time. No crime has occurred in the guest house, so then that means the stage of the tragedy is in the mansion.
Though she had an umbrella up, Erica got drenched as she sprinted. She brashly licked the raindrops that dripped down her face. Erica was at her most energetic. According to her memory from the previous game, the entrance hall to the mansion would be locked after the start of the family conference. However, the lock was undone this time. Had someone unlocked it, or had the lock not been set, or had it not been possible to set the lock?
Well, no point thinking about it now. After all, that might just be a whim of the game masters.
As soon as she entered the entrance hall, the door to the parlour opened violently. Out of it flew Goda's large body.
Ah, good evening, Goda-san. Is something the matter?
Police! Ambulance! Oh!
That expression really is wonderfully pathetic. Just perfect for the first one to discover the crime. That is not the narrator speaking.
Please calm down. How could the police or an ambulance get to an isolated island inside a typhoon? I'm sure the phones are out anyway, so please calm yourself.
Yells from Kraus and Rudolph's group could be heard from the parlour. Their shaken appearance perfectly signified the coming of the first twilight.
Well then, give me the victims, the scene, and the reconstruction of the situation.
Those who left to take a break didn't come back, so the adults went to the parlor. When they did, the door was sealed from the inside, and they couldn't open it. You'll see later, but the hat stand in the parlor had been used to bar the double doors from the inside.
So, you're trying to say that the door was blocked from the inside, and the windows were also locked from the inside?
That's it. When they went around and looked into the parlor through the window, they saw Rosa lying on the sofa in an unnatural position with blood pouring from her forehead. Then they smashed the glass, entered the parlor, and discovered that Maria was also lying there by the wall and covered in blood.
Got it. Yes, that would make them yell. Oh my goodness. And the other crime scenes?
The entrance wasn't locked when you came into the mansion because they went out through it to check the parlor from the outside. It had been locked before they left through it, so there was a chance that the others who had gone missing were lying elsewhere within the mansion, and the adults are now searching the entire building.
So, do the places the victims died match that long crazy delusion you showed earlier?
They match.
Rosa and Maria were in the parlor. Beyond that, Natsuhi was in her own room, and Kirie was in Klaus's study. Ava was in the rose garden.
What
The
were you
corpse
gonna say?
garden.
No, wait. She was moved to the VIP room, wasn't she?
Yes, Ava's corpse was found in the VIP room.
That makes 5 victims. Ah, that's one short for the first Twilight. Who's the 6th person, and where?
Gross Summer! The chain on this room is also set. Cut it! The culprit might be hiding in there. Goda, do it. Do it.
Rudolph and Kraus had brought the Winchesters from Kinzo's prize collection. They yelled at Goda, who was carrying the wire cutters, to cut the chain. The victims had been found one after another at several locations inside the mansion. The men who had lost their wives searched through the mansion in a rage, looking for the culprit. This was a guest room. It had previously been a room where the relatives would stay, but it hadn't been used much since the construction of the guest house. This forgotten room had been sealed from the inside by the chain.
Yeah!
As soon as the chain was cut, Rudolph pushed Goda aside and flew into the room.
Is anyone there? Get out here. There's someone on the bed. Let's get some light. Aniki.
When Kraus pushed a switch on the wall, the guest room lit up, and the figure lying on the bed came into view. Oh no.
Battler!
What?
Damn it.
What?
What are you doing in a place like this?
What? I thought Battler couldn't die.
He's the game master. These are all pieces. He's just making his own.
He killed his own piece?
Well, yeah.
Oh. Battler. Rudolph's knees crumpled and he fell over Battler's corpse. No words could console him as he cried with a mad sorrow. In a single night, he had lost both his wife and his son. During this time, Kraus checked the window in the bathroom and searched the closet to find if anyone was hiding there, but found no one.
Battler! Battler! Damn it. Ah! How sad. I can't believe it, but this room is also a closed room. What? Again?
Well, Cody, you got to back down the door.
Yes, my study where Kirie was, Natsuhi's room, the VIP room with Ava, the parlor with Rosa and her daughter, and now Battler-kun in this guest room. They're all closed rooms, aren't they? I don't understand. It couldn't be suicide, could it? That's impossible. How could this be a suicide? Battler!
Oh, there's a surprise. To think that you yourself would be the sixth person.
It's more interesting to kill yourself off every now and then.
And all of the crime scenes are closed rooms. It's a murder that couldn't have been performed without magic.
Isn't seeing through that the point of this game? In other words, it must be a murder that could have been performed without magic. After all, if it really could be done only with magic, this wouldn't be a game.
That's an interesting thought. Yes, that is the sort of game we've been playing.
This game is fair. The goal is to explain without magic the strange crimes that are claimed to be caused with magic. If that couldn't be done, it wouldn't be a game. In other words, as Erica had said, they must be murders that could have been performed without magic. To turn it around, the witch side had a certain responsibility. They had to make a crime that could be reproduced with tricks and not magic. Unless the human side could see through those tricks, the witch side could use all kinds of magic and illusions. In other words, in order to carry out a closed room murder with magic, it was necessary to create a crime that would be possible by human hands. Now I understand. I see why, when I ordered the 7 sisters to kill my classmates back at St. Lucia's, they couldn't do what I told them. And I understand the meaning of Mammon's words. Magic can only do what you can accomplish by your own hands. Is that it? At that time, if I had possessed the determination to kill my classmates, no, that's not it. At that time, if I had been capable of killing my classmates, capable of pulling it off, then the 7 Sisters of Purgatory would probably have pulled it off for me. They could only accomplish what I could do myself. No, that's not it either. They could take what I had accomplished and turn it into magic. However, because there had been a great number of witnesses in that classroom, it probably would have been impossible. It would have been burned by that anti-magic toxin Maria One-chan and the others always talk about. However, if I had called those classmates out somewhere without witnesses, and if I had succeeded in murder, at that point, the 7 Sisters of Purgatory would be capable of carrying out a magical murder. Even with my magic, witches cannot do things that they cannot accomplish by themselves. They can only adorn things that they're capable of doing with magic. Interesting. And that is because those who accomplish something without using magic later claim that magic was used and call themselves witches. This Erica person has understood that since the beginning. That's why she will never surrender to witches. She is confident that it must be explainable with tricks. The old battler was toyed with so frequently because he did not possess that conviction. Once you see through that rule, the witch loses any chance at victory. That's why they have to make their opponent surrender before they see the truth of that rule. The longer the match is drawn out and the more hints are given, the greater the witch's overwhelming disadvantage becomes. Once again, this reasoning keeps spinning around in circles. Why did Beato let this game get drawn out until she lost? Many victims had been found and the mansion was still wrapped in chaos. Hideyoshi's group seemed to have gone to the guest house, worrying about the safety of the kids there. Kraus and Rudolph's group was in the hall, talking about what should be done next. During a short gap in this chaos, Erica dashed Earl about the mansion. She was checking the crime scenes. More gently this time.
I'm just imagining like cockroach Erica just running around.
Ew! Is that cockroach Erica? Was that one?
Nah, they called her a spider.
Ah, that's right.
She was crawling on the walls and like
Ugh.
putting the tape on the windows.
Normally, with the detective's authority, Erica had the right to openly investigate the crime scenes to her heart's content. However, this time she hadn't yet made use of that authority. She was a guest and an outsider, so there was little to no chance that she would be allowed to investigate. So she was forced to quickly check all of the crime scenes now, while she could still run about as she pleased. In the servant room there had been a clear folder containing a sketch of the mansion's interior. Because she had borrowed that, she knew the locations of all the rooms. Erica skillfully made her way through the mansion, dashing into each crime scene in turn. Tampering with evidence! Lady Erica, I believe you know, but allow me to warn you just in case.
Yes, what is it?
It is true that you have an incredible photographic memory, Lady Erica. That combined with the detective proclamation is what made it possible for you to avoid being deceived by anything.
Yeah, I get it. Since no detective proclamation has been made about me, even my photographic memory doesn't count as foolproof evidence. Of course, I understand that. Still, that doesn't mean I can afford to miss viewing the crime scenes directly. After all, in the last game, my pride in that regard led me to a truly miserable failure.
For example, by this argument, no matter how well you examine a person's corpse, you could not even guarantee that they were not faking their death with absolute certainty. Most probably, features of this situation must be individually confirmed by telling Butler to repeat them in red.
And I'll need to use the blue truth liberally in order to make him. I understand. Let's start with the basics. The lack of the detective's authority is no handicap. It simply means that I'm fighting under the same conditions Butler once was.
Yeah.
Yes, this fight is retracing the old days when Butler and Beato fought so fiercely. I have nothing as convenient as the detective's authority. I just have to truly fight the same way the old battler fought. Thinking of it this way, it may be true that I was given quite a favourable, unfair position last game, just as my master has said. It may be difficult without the detective's authority, which is also my pride and honour as a detective, but I won't let that be a handicap. I know what magic is, and I'm fully aware of how to fight with the red and blue truths. I know the way to fight in this game many times better than the old battler did. I quickly visited the VIP room, Krause's study, and Natsuhi's room on the second floor, as well as the parlour and the guest room on the first floor, this time checking with my own eyes as I had failed to do in the last game. First off, all of the scenes were made to look like closed rooms. Probably of special note was the fact that the master keys could have had nothing to do with the trick. The closed rooms were all made without relying on any elements that could be locked or unlocked from the outside by a master key or something else. The windows were locked from the inside and the doors were all locked and chained. A master key could get around all the locks on the doors, but not the window locks or the chain locks. I haven't yet had Butler confirm that it's impossible to manipulate those from the outside, but I'm sure he'll be able to say it in red. It'd be stupid otherwise. I understand. Right now, I am a mere human. I can't even properly confirm the death of the corpses. Last time I neglected to check the corpses and let a massive bit of magic get by me. I won't fail like that again. If I did, I wouldn't be able to face the master I'm so indebted to.
We have checked all of the scenes and finished gathering information. Here is our report.
Go ahead.
First, all of the rooms were closed rooms formed by the window locks and chain locks and the like, so the interference from the outside would be difficult. The only exception is the parlor where Rose and Maria lay dead.
Please allow me to speak. Let it be known that the door was barred with a hat stand.
It is thought to be substantially the same as a chain lock, in that it can only be set from the inside. It is probably their goal to construct closed rooms where explanations using master keys are made completely ineffective. The parlor has no chain lock due to its very nature, so it is natural that something else would be used in the chain's place.
In that case, the interesting question becomes why one of the other rooms with chain locks wasn't chosen to be a closed room. There were several guest rooms other than the one Battler lay dead in, all with similar layouts, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
In that case, even though it should have been more beautiful to throw them in there, so that everyone would be inside a chain-locked closed room, they did not. That hat stand door bar in the parlor seems very suspicious. I should probably pursue this when demanding red truths. Also, we have corpses, but are they the same absolute deaths, with their necks sliced open like in the last game, which could be confirmed even without the detective's authority?
Of course, she had checked all of the corpses in all of the crime scenes this time. However, without the detective's authority, she had no guarantee that she would be able to see through any fake deaths with certainty. The old Battler had also started fighting by doubting whether the victims were truly dead. It was the same for Erica.
Please allow me to speak. Know that there were no corpses that could have been confirmed dead with certainty by physical means.
Please allow me to speak. We cannot deny the possibility that any one of these corpses might be a faked death.
Well, I doubt Battler will easily confirm their deaths in red, even if I tell him to. Sheesh.
Oh my goodness. I liked Beata's chain of 6 closed rooms better. However, these closed rooms are even more complete, considering that master keys don't help you at all.
Do you remember the chain closed room?
I'm still trying to remember Lambda Delta's voice.
There's 2 or 3. I think it was 2. It was like where they went to one room, had the key for another room.
Oh, I
And
remember
it
the
just
image,
kept going
yeah,
around
and
it.
it was like, yeah.
There are 2 general ways of breaking closed rooms that Battler might be after. An illusion of a closed room or an illusion of a crime. It'll be one of those.
I get the first one. That's when something looks like a closed room, but it actually isn't, right? What do you mean by an illusion of a crime?
An illusion that makes it seem as though a crime has occurred. In other words, are they really dead?
Well, that's dumb. If the people inside are alive, handling any kind of closed room is like pissing in a toilet. Still, with this closed room, it's pretty hard to think of any other answer.
What about the endless possibilities of manipulating the chain lock from the outside? We don't know if there are secret doors, ways to kill from a distance, chances of suicide, or even whether these are complete closed rooms in the first place.
I already know since I'm looking at Battler's game board from the underside. But these are perfect closed rooms. They can only be constructed from the inside, and there exists no method by which to construct, deconstruct, or interfere with them from the outside.
Can you say that in red?
That'd be a little too rude to Battler, so no. If you do love me, you must see my words as a red truth already, right?
Then the closed rooms are perfect. In other words, this is an illusion of a crime.
Does seem that way. If so, these are all tricked closed rooms. Doesn't this mean that everyone got so pissed at Erica bragging about detectives and stuff that they joined together and set up a fake murder to make fun of her? Oh, is this the right answer? I'm like a super detective.
Unfortunately, this isn't a fake. The victims really have been killed.
Huh? And you don't mean that by midnight on the second day, right?
No detective proclamation has been made, but she's very accurate when examining corpses. She's good enough that I could give her examinations the red truth.
So, does that mean that they were definitely dead when Erica examined their corpses?
Yes, that's right. Totally.
But you won't say it in red for her, right? And that poor Erica must want it so bad.
Well, she isn't even the detective this time around. I won't give her any red.
Still, that makes it incredible. This time, Butler's really made a perfect closed room.
Oh, yes, I believe you're right.
Will Erica be okay? It looks like an ordinary closed room murder at a glance, but this one is pretty nasty. Would this load be a bit too heavy for Erica without her detective's authority?
She is a self-proclaimed detective. I'm sure she'll pull through. If Battler and Beato are defeated by a mere human who isn't even a detective, they'd fall apart in the most exquisite way, don't you think?
And even if Erica loses, you get to play by throwing her into the worst fragment and knocking her into the depths of oblivion?
Exactly. No matter how it turns out, it won't be boring.
You really are heartless, aren't you? Well, wringing out this black cat like a towel and licking up every last drop is bliss to me.
Beato's game board did entertain me for quite some time, but we've already wrung everything we can from it. It'll be over with this game, so in the end we really must let Battler and Erica bet everything in one final face-off.
And I wanted to play with you forever in this game. What a shame.
Come now, I've spent plenty of time with you already. Go find me another interesting game. If you do, I'll play with you again.
Ah, yes, you really don't let me get bored. That's okay, Burncastle. Seeing your face twist with anguish is the one forbidden honey I've found for myself. Lambda Delta had guaranteed that it was a perfect closed room. Burncastle had guaranteed that it was a perfect murder. A perfect closed room and murder. The witches hate a killjoy, so they haven't said anything with the red truth yet. Pursuing that was the role for Battler and Erica.
Looks like you've trampled over the crime scenes by now. Satisfied? Is your inspection complete?
Yes, I'm satisfied. So, about our war of red and blue. Shall we start right away, or do it all at the end?
I don't like putting things off. I think the same goes for you.
Then let's get started with the closed rooms of the first twilight. First, I'd like to check. Do you intend to respond if I ask you to repeat something in red?
Depending on what you say, yes. I have no obligation to respond to everything, and I won't reveal my reasons when I refuse.
Good. Then, let's start simple and confirm the definition of a closed room. Dylanor, please read it out loud.
No. Understood. We demand that the following be repeated. Dinalaw spread out one of those scrolls that some official would use. Oh my goodness. Dinalaw spread out one of those scrolls that some official would always spread out when announcing the king in Western fairy tales, and read it out aloud. First, the rooms with the 6 people in them are all closed rooms.
Acknowledged. Of course, that's only until Goda and the others severed the chains and destroyed the closed rooms.
At a nod from Dylanor, Cornelia, who stood behind her, started taking notes. Second, the definition of closed room implies that it is impossible to construct from the outside.
Acknowledged.
In other words, no trickery done from the outside can construct a closed room. It is not permitted for a chain lock to be reset from the outside by a cleverly used wire, for example.
I didn't need you to tell me that. Dillenor, please continue.
Third, the definition of a closed room implies that all forms of interference is too much quickly for me to read. Interference that pass between the inside and outside of the room are prevented.
Acknowledged. However, I won't deny the kinds of interference that you'd expect from a normal room, such as knocks, voices, and the extension telephone line.
Fourth, at the time of the deconstruction of the closed rooms, none existed within the rooms except the victims: Natsuhi, Ava, Kirie, Rosa, Maria, Butler.
Acknowledged.
In this way, they could confirm whether or not the culprit had been hiding inside a closed room. If the culprit had slipped out of the room after the discoverers had noticed the murders and then walked away, it would have been possible to construct an illusion of a closed room. Because Butler had acknowledged their statement with the red truth, the possibility that the culprit and the victim had both been inside the closed room at the time of the crime, and that the culprit had hidden under the bed and snuck out after the discovery of the crime, had been denied. Fifth, no murder was committed after the deconstruction of the closed rooms.
I refuse.
Why? Because the victims really were alive after the closed rooms were destroyed? So, Kraus and the others who barged in were culprits and committed the murders then? In other words, they were post-closed room murders. Is that why you refuse?
Not at all. The murders will continue to occur, so we cannot say in red that no murders will happen after this.
Sheesh, what twisted logic. You probably see what we're getting at. Kraus's group cut the chain and destroyed the closed rooms, then killed the people inside. I just want you to counter this.
Lady Erica, it is insufficient to refer to Kraus's group, an unspecified number of people. You should first determine which humans entered the room after the closed room was deconstructed.
Allow me to speak. Excepting the victims. Yep. Those who entered the closed rooms were Kraus, Rudolph, Hideyoshi, and Goda.
Allow me to speak. This is based on spoken testimony. Know that there is no proof that others did not enter.
I know that already. Let's have you repeat that. After the deconstruction of the closed rooms, then excluding me, only Kraus, Rudolph, Hideyoshi, and Goda entered the rooms.
Sure. Acknowledged. However, this only applies to the current point in time. It's possible that some later development in the game will cause more people to enter.
Repeat it. Kraus, Rudolph, Hideyoshi, and Goda are not culprits.
Basil put his finger on his chin, deep in thought. This word culprit was fairly broad, and it might serve to greatly restrict the darkness of the witch. Why not answer? If we refuse, the blue truth naming Kraus and the others as the culprit will remain.
Sure. I'll acknowledge it, but I'll make the language more strict. Kraus, Rudolph, Hideyoshi, and Goda were not involved in the murders of Natsuhi, Ava, Kirie, Rosa, Maria, and Butler.
And that means it was also impossible for any of the other humans who didn't even enter the closed room to have been involved with the murder, doesn't it?
Who knows? Think about it yourself. If you think you can build up some blue truth for how a closed room murder can be committed without entering the room, then I'll respond with the red truth. However, I only need to destroy one of the blue truths you'll be presenting from here on out.
In other words, even if you do manage to use the blue truth and explain this away with some long-distance closed-room murder trick X, I don't necessarily have to counter with the red truth.
These are the rules of the Witch's game. Angie had confirmed these details with Beato in the fourth game. The Witch side lays out riddle after riddle that it claims are impossible to carry out except by magic. The human side must use the blue truth to argue that they are explainable with tricks. And if they fail to make a counter-argument with the blue truth for even one of the riddles, that riddle will be considered to have been done by magic, and it will be impossible to deny the existence of a witch. In other words, the witch side only needs to protect any one of its riddles. However, the human side has to fully explain all riddles with the blue truth. And even if the human side manages to explain all of the riddles with the blue truth, if any one of those is successfully countered by the red truth, the witch will win. That was why, like the strategy the old Beato had adopted at the end, it was sufficient for the witch side to put off their red text counter-arguments until the very last moment, then make a single strike at their opponent's most fragile spot.
In any event, you've refused to repeat that last one, right? Don't get the wrong idea. I don't give out red for free. Yeah.
From the witch's perspective, repeating statements made by the human side is just a supplement to make sure that they haven't misunderstood the question. Therefore, they had no obligation to respond to extremely broad demands.
Not bad. Looks like you can handle being a player on the witch side pretty well too. Your experience is no match for mine. Shh, Dylan.
Let us continue. Next, the victims did not die by any method other than homicide.
Acknowledged.
Of course, there were no suicides or accidental deaths. Seventh, the victims.
That's enough, Dylan.
Are you sure there are still items?
Yes, that will do fine. I've confirmed the status of the crime scene. From here on, it's time for me to argue back with the blue truth. Sure, fine. Let me hear your masterful theories.
Though Butler and Erica were enemies, it looked to Beato as though they were having a little fun doing this. She was probably slightly jealous of Erica. Beato thought back on the books she had read in Featherian's library, in which the old her and Butler had fought. That must have been fun as well.
I was just looking something up.
Yeah?
That's pretty funny.
What?
I can't tell you.
You can't tell me!
Uh-huh.
Spoilers!
Yep.
During a short break in the family conference, a horrible, brutal mass murder had occurred. The 6 people killed, excluding Butler, had all been women. The remaining men went mad with rage at the cowardice, then broke down sobbing at the sadness of losing their wives, over and over again.
Why were they all women? How cowardly can a person be?
What's wrong with us? Here we are under the same roof and we're just smoking away, not noticing that members of our own family are getting killed. Damn it. But who and how? They were not unguarded. The chain was set for all of them. Who gives a damn about that? I don't care about how they were killed, I just want to know who did it.
Hey, Genji-san, Goda-san, were the doors and windows to the mansion all locked during the family conference?
Yes, there can be no doubt. In accordance with Madame's instructions, everything is always locked at the time of the night patrol. Tonight was a special case, so everything was locked up right after seeing the children off to the guest house.
Why'd they change the spelling of Genshi's name?
What do you mean?
It's Ronaway instead of Ronove.
That's what it always was. Run away.
It wasn't. I thought it was. They were like Ronove and Ronove.
No, it's spelled run away.
Is Ronove spelled with
Ronaway
V?
is spelled run away, yeah.
Okay.
How is that possible? I mean, Badler and Maria-chan were inside the mansion, right? They shouldn't have been able to get in, right?
If everything really was locked up properly, that couldn't have happened. Doesn't that prove that the building wasn't completely locked up? Well?
He was arguing that Goda's failure to lock up properly might have allowed a stranger to sneak in. At the very least, none of them had known that Battler and Maria had visited the mansion. If those two had come and found everything locked tight, they wouldn't have been able to get inside. If they had rung the doorbell, Goda would probably have heard them from the servant room. But Goda said that nothing of the sort had happened. How they had entered the locked mansion was a complete mystery.
This is merely an idea, but... For example, what if Madame or someone happened to be near the entrance? Notice Battler-sama and Maria-sama knocking on the door or ringing the bell and let them in.
That couldn't have happened. You were in the servant room then, right, Goda-san? Isn't there a chime in the servant room that goes off when the front door opens? There's no way you would have missed anyone.
The guy was asleep.
Well...
At that time, Goda was serving drinks as you requested, so he was not in the servant room.
Why was there only one servant in the mansion on such an important day? Why was someone as important as Genji-san on duty at the guest house? Does that make any sense? Why was the servant room left empty?
My wife formed those shifts. She probably hoped that Goda would be kind enough to serve some fashionable drinks throughout the family conference as well.
But Kraus-Nissan, this is the family conference, right? The most important day of the year, right? Why was Goda-san left as the only person on shift in the mansion? If there had been just one more person, everything would have been different, wouldn't it? Right?
With a half-crying, half-enraged, jumbled-up expression, Hideyoshi yelled at Goda. Of course, the culprit who killed everyone was the most to blame and the most despicable. However, even if he understood that, he needed to let off some of his emotions by hating someone that he could see.
I am fully aware of how everyone feels. However, please calm down. Either Goda-san wasn't thorough enough when locking up, or someone let Battler-san and Maria in after they came back from the guest house and then forgot to lock up afterwards. However, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how the culprit snuck in. After all, the mansion is massive. They might have come in much earlier and hidden until late at night for all we know. I can understand that you might want to suspect certain people, but please calm down.
Our guest is right. The culprit is the one we should hate, not the servant who just happened to be on duty. At any rate, let's calm down. I feel as terrible as the rest of you. However, we must take the initiative now and regain our composure. Everyone feels just as sad and devastated, and none of us will ever forgive the one who did this. For that reason, we must regain our composure.
He's right. I still have George. Kraus-Nissan still has Jessica-chan. And Rudolph-kun, you still have Anji-chan waiting for you back to return, right? It's still too soon to start pointing fingers.
The culprit is still on this island, and we can't be sure that this tragic crime is over. We need to stay calm and prevent any further tragedies.
Erica's words softly consoled them and gently admonished them. If a servant had said the same thing, Rudolph would probably have jumped on him. However, since it had come from the lips of the guest, a neutral party, It seemed to reach their ears.
Let's stay cool. We have 3 grown men with us, and guns as well. Judging by that pattern of the murders, the chances of the culprit having a gun are low. In other words, as long as we keep our heads, the culprit no longer has any way to touch us.
She's right. We can't let the culprit do as they please any longer on our island. Let's find the culprit. We're in the middle of a typhoon. They can't escape from the island, and there's only so many places they can take shelter from in the rain.
This island is larger than you'd think. Unfortunately, it would be difficult to search the island with this many people. After all, if you found the culprit, you might shoot them to death on the spot as you are now. If the frightened culprit has run into the deep forest, you won't find them easily.
Right. We should just wait for the typhoon to pass. Have the boat call the police for us and let them thoroughly search the island. The police are incredible. They'll bring hundreds of people and pick through it with a fine-toothed comb. That forest may be deep, but they'll definitely smoke them out.
Yeah. The most important thing now is to make sure no more of our beloved family members are taken from us. Rudolph, if something happens to you, what will happen to Anji-chan back home?
Kirie, Battler.
Damn it. Damn it! I never had a chance to tell you the truth.
Kraus-san, I'm sure that everyone in the cousin room is extremely agitated right now. If you show them that you've regained your composure, I'm sure that will help them relax a lot. Would you mind heading up there?
Good point. We have to talk with everyone about what we're going to do next.
Please go up with him, Genji-san, Goda-san. I'm sure that Shannon-san, Cannon-san, and Kumasawa-san are all very agitated.
Yes, I'm sure everyone is quite agitated.
Are you certain? Is there anything else we can help with?
That's why I want you to go with Kraus-san. I want you there to help him if something happens. I'd like for the rest of us to check and see that everything's locked up here. We'll head up soon, so please go on ahead.
Understood. If you need anything, please call us.
Genji bowed and Kraus nodded. Kraus also nodded to Erika, then headed up to the second floor with Genji and Goda. In times of confusion where only men are around, it's easy for a composed member of the opposite sex to take the initiative. Even without the detective's authority, she was able to control them quite naturally. Erika had wanted to get rid of the servants for the time being. Why we have a view of golf clubs?
Okay. In that case, let's get to checking the locks.
Our problem's gonna be the big window in the lounge. It looks like it doesn't have any shutters. If they smash this, we won't be able to stop them from coming in.
Don't worry, the sound of glass smashing will be more than enough warning. We'll turn them to Swiss cheese.
Quiet, please. I didn't have you stay down here to check the doors and windows. Please listen calmly to what I'm about to say.
When Erika lowered her voice, Rudolph and Hideyoshi realized that she wanted to talk about something secret, so they brought their ears closer as soon as they regained their composure.
Listen up. This crime happened during a short break in the family conference. In that tiny span of time, 6 people were killed without anyone noticing. I can't imagine a crime improvised on the spot going so smoothly. This crime was committed by someone who knew the layout of the mansion well, inside and out.
Well, if they didn't know the inside well. But...
A short while ago they had attacked Goda, suspecting the servants of making a blunder. However, they'd only thought that he'd forgotten to lock up, and were attacking him for letting the mysterious culprit sneak in. They hadn't considered that one of the servants they knew so well might have taken the lives with their own hands. No, they hadn't wanted to think that. people can't easily suspect someone they know well of being a culprit.
At the time of the crime, the mansion was locked from the inside, and only those with the family conference existed there, involved in the family conference.
So, Aniki killed Kirie and the others? Or am I supposed to suspect Hideyoshi Nisan? It's impossible, unthinkable.
I never even considered suspecting Kraus-Nisan or Rudolph-kun. All of the siblings had excellent relationships with their spouses. True, the Ushiromiya family may be strict with discipline and money, but that doesn't mean we treasure our own families less than anyone else.
Yes, of course, I believe that. I wouldn't dream that any of you would kill your own wives.
Erika had already received Red Truth proof from Battler that they were not the murderers, so there was no need to argue that point. Kraus, Rudolph, Hideyoshi, and Goda, none of those four was the killer. And yet Erika said this.
However, what about Goda-san? He was in the waiting room the whole time, during the family conference, in a position from which he could do anything without anyone knowing.
Isn't it a little early to suspect Goda-san? Goda-san came to bring us drinks bring us drinks in the dining hall during the break. He was with us for quite some time. He couldn't have had time to kill 6 people.
However, he might have been able to let the actual killer into the mansion.
Precisely. Goda-san probably didn't kill them himself. However, it's very possible that he secretly welcomed the actual murderer into the mansion.
Rudolph and Hideyoshi, stunned, looked at each other. They were family. Even a wife of the siblings would be considered family. Though the siblings hated each other, it wasn't possible that they'd hate each other's wives enough to kill them. Ava and Rosa were 2 of the siblings, but none of the others could have had any reason to kill Natsuki, Kirie, Battler, or the young Maria. But to a servant like Goda, perhaps they were all a little more than complete strangers.
I suspect the servants on 2 points. First, the victims are familiar with them, and there were no signs of a fight in any of the crime scenes. I think you know well that there was no disturbance at any of those places.
I was thinking that too. Figured Kirie was used enough to fights that she wouldn't get killed that easily without resisting. That woman wouldn't hesitate to bite your finger off. It does make more sense if the culprit was someone she knew who suddenly attacked when her guard was down.
Come to think of it, the same goes for my Ava. She knows a dozen kinds of martial arts. She spends every day practically wishing for some ruffian to attack her.
I could see her doing that.
She wouldn't have been killed off so easily.
Then what about Rosa-san in the parlor? Do you think she'd be easily killed by a stranger without resisting, while she had her only daughter with her? And this tells us something else that's important.
Something important?
The culprit isn't just one person, right?
You're right. Both Rosa-san and Maria-chan were in the parlor. If they hadn't both been killed at the same time, there would have been an uproar. Since the culprit was able to do that, there can't be just one of them.
When it comes to Maria-chan, Rosa was like a quick-to-anger mama bear. She wouldn't cower in fear even if someone pointed a gun at her. I see. So it had to be someone who wouldn't rouse Rosa's suspicion until the last second.
Now we see that the idea of an unknown outsider sneaking onto the island is actually the less realistic option. The culprit is someone familiar with the island. And there's more than one.
The culprit is someone familiar, and there's more than one. Erika's reasoning pointed clearly at the ones they should suspect and guard themselves against.
So, you suspect the servants?
Yes. Under the current circumstances, they are the most suspicious. The second reason to suspect them is the closed rooms with the chain locks.
Why do the chain locks make them suspicious?
What if there was no chain lock on the closed rooms?
Then they wouldn't be closed rooms. With a single master key, anyone can make them.
I see. The servants had to seal them with the chain so that they wouldn't be suspected.
Exactly. By setting the chain, they don't have to worry about being suspected. To turn it around, if the chains weren't set, they wouldn't be able to avoid suspicion, since they hold the master keys.
So, the only ones with something to gain from the setting the chains are the servants.
I'm not trying to protect them or anything. But if so, how did they actually set the chains? Is it possible to set them from the outside?
Considering how they're built, I don't think it'd be impossible. Have you heard this story? Apparently, some mailmen who deliver to apartment mailboxes are known to carry loops of wire with them.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Apartment mailboxes often have a similar adjoining boxes around them for the nearby room numbers.
What?
I hear they'd sometimes accidentally deliver letters to the next room over if they weren't careful.
These mailboxes are almost always locked. If you put the mail into the wrong one, you'd have no way of getting it out.
In that situation, they're supposed to tell the owner of that mailbox about their mistake, have the person unlock the mailbox for them, and retrieve the improperly delivered mail. However, the resident of that apartment would often be out, and going through that process would be a real pain. Because of that, some mailmen would make a little tool out of wire with a loop at the end, and use that to fish the mistakenly placed postcard out through the crack in the mailbox.
I've heard something similar from a friend of mine at a building management company. It seems they'd sometimes get drunks who locked themselves in the bathroom and fell asleep. So to get them out of there, they'd stick a thin metal tool through the crack in the door and undo the latch.
Exactly. All industries have little tools that can easily open things that normally can't be opened. It wouldn't be particularly surprising if the servants of a mansion had something of the sort.
That explains how you get in, but that doesn't explain the getting out and locking it.
To set it again.
I feel like it's different levels of difficulty.
Maybe.
Good point.
Once you figured out the knack of it, you probably could set the chain from the outside by using a wire. Yeah, we can't be sure that's impossible.
True. Physically speaking, one couldn't say for sure that there existed absolutely no way to set and unset chain locks from the outside. Chain locks allow for the door to be opened a crack. If you stuck something through that crack, you should be able to manage it easily. It was very natural for them to think that. However, Erica knew better. Though it might be possible in reality, the red truth had already been declared that these closed rooms could not have been constructed from the outside. In other words, it was impossible to manipulate the chain lock from the outside. And yet, Erica was guiding their thoughts with the illusion that only the servants could have constructed the closed rooms, with an air of solemnly revealing some crucial point. She steadily steered the situation in the direction she wanted. Every part of her serious face for the last few minutes had been an act. No, to put it in her words, it was a detective technique for tricking suspects.
I plan to tell Krasan what I've told you. I'm not saying that all the servants are culprits. However, it's very likely that one of them is a culprit, or has been assisting the culprit. We should split them apart and have people with guns keep an eye on them.
Rudolph and Hideyoshi looked at each other again. What was she saying? What she was saying made sense, and it sounded as though she was calmly smoking out the most suspicious people at this point in time. With her accomplished conversation techniques, Erica was cleverly grasping the initiative. Even without the detective's authority, it's possible to control human nature to this degree. What do you think, everyone? Is that the end?
Yep. Who was the culprit?
I feel like I had a micro sleep when I woke up and it was the end.